What is up, guys? This video is a confusion video because I'm reading off of the email that I have here, which is an exchange, the ICE exchange, to list new Arabica coffee futures and options contracts later this year, and will pause the listings of contract months in the existing coffee C futures and options contracts. Holy hell, how that is important. Um, why? But there's whoever works in futures and in coffee trading or in any trading. I mean, if you're changing the structure of the futures market, you're changing completely how to calculate and create businesses based off of this change. I mean, it's not totally bonkers, but and I think at the end of the day, it's a good idea. But I don't know what else is involved. But basically, if you didn't understand, the ICE futures is calculated at cents per pound, and they have a certain way of these contracts have a certain way of being used because they're financial instruments for traders, for hedgers, for speculators, for funds to buy and sell contracts, and then of course deliver or receive on expiry. So again, what does that mean? That means that a contract of the futures market is 37.5 thousand pounds, if I'm not mistaken, and they're calculated in cents per pound. So if you're buying a New York futures contract of Arabica, you're buying against September, you're buying one contract at 37.5 thousand pounds, which I think is like 17 something metric tons, and it has a value to it. And then if you're buying it, of course, if you're holding on to that contract, you have margin calls. If you're losing money, you have to put in money. If the market goes up, you're gaining money, and the money is deposited to your bank account, and then you could have a realized or unrealized profit or loss. Again, but that's a different subject. The futures market, apparently, I don't know how they make this type of decisions, to be honest. They sent an email this week communicating that this is going to change. And this change, whether for better or for worse, is very important to all of us. This is going to explain. This is going to explain how. This is going to change how are we going to calculate our contracts and the money that we need to hedge coffees, to speculate in the futures market, to lock in prices at origin or at destination, and to maneuver how much money do we need, in these bank accounts to ride with, our ideas, right? And the important thing that I want to note in the beginning, because all the details are going to come out later this year, is that they're saying that they're going to change from cents per pound to USD per metric ton. Now, this is not bad because London is already USD per metric ton. So initially, you'd be like, okay, fine. It's easier to compare your Arabicas and then your Robusta prices because they're both in USD per metric ton. New York Arabica, London exchange is Robusta. However, the first questions that come out of my mind is how do you start, calculating arbitrage? How do you think, how is the market going to change the way it prices itself because it's in US dollars per metric ton now in general? Are we going to see that much of a difference between Arabica and Robusta, even though they're totally different qualities? That doesn't mean that, we don't know how the market is going to react in 2028. And again, where the production is going to be in 2028. That's another thing. We had this year, Brazil is almost passing Vietnam Conilon and Robusta coffee production. And I would not be surprised if Brazil in 2028 produces more Robusta than in Vietnam. And it could be even sooner. But again, that's another 3 years from now. So a lot of these variables, these factors come into play when this kind of thing happens. And for traders, I mean, to me, this is something that's going to be on the back of my mind because, again, it's only in 2028. But it's something that you think about of how to do business when time comes. Now, if you're going to do business now, let's say in cents per pound, it says on the email, listen, you have until March 2028 is the last, I think, contract, the last cents per pound contract, and after that, it's all going to be in US dollars per ton. So there could be such a shift from now, and again, any of this could happen and none of this could happen at the same time. But this could be a shift that from now until 2028, you have companies living off of bare minimum because of prices, because of tariffs, because of uncertainty also in the chain, in the exchange, because you're going to have more details at the end of the year. And since we don't know the details, I mean, why are companies going to extend their inventory or extend their capital in their coffee when something that could happen in the future be more beneficial for them? So if they tighten down, the strategy could be that if they tighten down from a business perspective on their inventory and their cash, something could come out better later. I mean, it could be USD per metric ton, then you have coffee back and carry, then you have, all these kind of things. I mean, you could have mini margin calls. I mean, there's a lot of things that are in the air right now that if you don't need to extend that capital that you have as a roaster or as a raw material buyer, you're not going to. You don't have to. And that kind of plays into trading. It plays into how to negotiate, how to talk to people, how to approach, how do these companies are going to do their branding, and they're expanding or not expanding. Maybe they just tighten down the boat and be like, you know what, we're surviving here. Let's continue to survive until the market comes into our favor. And I just think it's something that I'm living in we are living in a lifetime, a very interesting part of life, because trading, especially in coffee, because I don't know much about metals or energy. I mean, I think I could say for those raw materials also, because of the diplomatic relations, U.S., the Russia-Ukraine war, whatever is happening in the Middle East, or in Canada too, because they're natural resources over there. But if you're in trading, we're living in such interesting times right now that even the most boring thing that you could think of, I mean, coffee, for example, is going through so much transformation in a short period of time, especially in a market that is totally against everybody, because the market is not against one person. Remember that. This is something. If the market is in backwardation and coffee prices are expensive, it's not because we want it to be expensive. Okay, it's not because we love it and we're making so much money and we're having so much fun. No, that's not what it is. I wish, but that's not the truth. Backwardation is bad for everybody. The market expensive is bad for everybody, from us all the way down to even the producers, because there's certain things that people, companies go broke and then you can't buy a coffee, then people cannot finance the coffee at origin, yada yada yada, and it's bad for consumers at the supermarkets. So it's this ICE contract, this this information or this news that came out, and again, I find it funny how it comes out in the middle of such a tariff war that's going on right now. It's like, you know what, fuck it, let's throw this out here and let's deal with it later. So this was a very important news, and then at the end of the year, I hope to share more information about how it's going to work. But basically, these were my thoughts in terms of 2028. We're not going to have cents per pound. We're going to have USD per metric tons for futures contracts and options also. And this is going to change. It's a game-changing type of strategy. It's a game-changing type of ideas, and the market's going to change, and we're going to see how it is. But hopefully by then, of course, we're going to be back in cash and carry. Coffee's cheaper, and then we're all going to have a lot of fun. So till then, let's see. Till next time, stay classy.